Hello, and welcome back to Victory Point Gaming for another Ark Nova strategy video. In this one, I'd like to talk about points. Now, this is a relatively simple concept, and as I said last time, I don't intend to explain to you the basics of the game that you already understand. With that said, points are a relatively important concept, so I would like to briefly summarize the basics. In Ark Nova, we have appeal, which is these tickets going along here, and that's always worth 1 point each. And we have conservation points, which are these green shields going this way. Initially, they're worth 2 points each, and once you have 10 of them, they then become worth 3 points each. Now, I generally tend to think of these as being worth 3 points, as a rule of thumb, but that's not strictly speaking true. Let's imagine a situation in which I want to trigger the endgame, and I need 15 points to do so. If I have a 5 conservation point project that I want to support, and I have 10 conservation points already, well, that 5 conservation point project is going to give me 15 points, and I will trigger the endgame. However, if I have 8 conservation points at the moment, then that project will only give me 13 points, and I won't trigger the endgame. So it can be quite an important thing to know. Alright, let's pivot over to appeal now. One appeal is 1 point, and it serves as both points and as a source of income. For that reason, it's very important, particularly at the beginning of the game. Initially, as you get appeal, you're going to get your income increasing very fast, and then it's going to slow down. There is a diminishing return. So getting appeal is always good, but the amount of income you get from it will decrease as you go further and further. So you can get appeal by playing animals, as you probably know. By filling out the zoo, you get 7 appeal. You need to have upgraded build for that one. And pavilions give you 1 appeal. Now, what I like to do when I'm making decisions about what to build is I like to open up the score track or look at it if I'm playing the physical board game and see, am I on the threshold of 1 income bracket to going to the next one, and for that reason, do I want to build a pavilion? I think it's always helpful in making that decision. Okay, so let's have a little look at the sponsored cards that might be relevant when thinking about appeal during the game. We have these 3, which give you just a basic boost of a fixed amount of tickets. I actually like all of these cards. They're all pretty nice early, and actually they're really nice to have in your opening hand because they are dead easy to play, and I always find myself without any good sponsors to play at the beginning of the game. So I actually like all of these ones. These 2 really help if you're filling out the zoo, and this gives you conservation points, so it's all good. Now, these ones are a little bit different. These are scalable one-time values of appeal. So, for example, Expert on Australia, if you have 4 Australia tags already, you play this, you get 5 tickets. Pretty nice. Noteworthy, I think, is Expert in Small Animals. This one can be a huge amount of tickets. It's not particularly difficult to play 10 plus small animals during the course of a game, so if you manage to do that and then get this card, play it, it's worth going to be worth a massive amount of tickets. One card that I have been really impressed by recently is stuff like native farm animals, native lizards, these kinds of cards. They can easily accrue you 7, 8 tickets without any difficulty at all. So they're actually really good. Just need to bear in mind the max restriction. And of course, you know, as well as this max 25 restriction, you have to bear in mind that you can be attacked by some of the creatures if you have more than 5 appeal. Always worth remembering. Okay, and now these are the really interesting ones. These are the scalable, repeatable effects. And I like to think of these as the build around cards. So if I see something like the Meerkat Den in my opening hand, I'm going to be inclined to want to try to build around it. Every time I play a herbivore, it's going to give me 2 appeal. And that can be very strong over the course of a game. Or the penguin pool. You can quite easily play 6 bird tags over the course of a game, and that's a really nice injection of appeal. Of special note is Was a Special Assignment, which I think is fantastic. Every time you play a small animal, which tends to be the way that people play it, you're going to get 2 extra appeal. Just remember that you can't play the big animals anymore, because I always forget that, and I snap a rhino and I go, ooh, a rhino, and then can't play it. Explorer, very good as well, if you upgrade your sponsor card. And a noteworthy mention goes to Expert on Asia, which technically does not give you appeal every time you play it, a thing, but it gives you a pavilion, which is just as good, and it helps you fill out the map, so very nice. And then we have these ones which give you endgame scoring of a fixed value. And actually these 2 cards are fantastically great. If you don't know about them, then just brilliant. The Engineer lets you have an extra building, and the Side Entrance is probably the best card in the whole game to see in your starting hand. Gives you a massive amount of income. These 2 cards would probably be good even without this endgame scoring, which is conditional. You do need to finish the map, but it really is the icing on the cake on 2 already very good cards. Finally, we have scalable endgame scoring. Expert on Africa is kind of the same deal, like it's already a good card. Usually gives you a few bonus appeal from the X tokens. This one, it can be quite good. Like, you can score up to 6 tickets of this thing. And if you can do it, it's great. And worth saying, these release projects can be very good at the end of the game, but you need to be careful for the same reasons that I said before. Plus, you need to make sure you've done your maths right and subtracted the ticket values if you are trying to use one of these to trigger the end game. They can be fantastically good at the beginning of a game if you've got no other project that you want to support or can support. And with these, you can actually support before the first break, but bear in mind it is going to cost you some appeal, and therefore some income. But you know, it's a trade-off. Alright, so I think that's about everything in terms of appeal. So on the subject of conservation points, we've already discussed how the value changes over time. So 10 conservation points are worth 20 points. Now it says 6 here, but that's because the game adjusts it because you start on -14. 20 conservation points are worth 50 points, and 25 are worth 65 points. Now the reason I highlight that one in particular is because I did have a little bit of a look at the top 10 players on Board Game Arena, and their average endgame conservation points was 25, and that includes endgame scoring and such. So that's a good number to know. I also, while I was at it, checked out their average endgame tickets, and that was 73. So that would give them an average final score of 138, which is a lot. I remember in one game, I actually somehow managed to get 35 conservation points. I eventually worked out that was worth 95 points. It's just absolutely crazy if you can do it. I think in that game, I had the migration recording sponsor, and I was able to release a whole bunch of creatures. It was really, really good. Alright, so for conservation points, of course we can play our conservation projects, we can get our map bonuses. It's worth checking your map if it's not one you're super familiar with to see if you're getting conservation points here underneath your last worker, for your last handshake, for your last university. As you can see on this particular map, there's nothing for the last worker, but there's 2 points here and 1 point here. So it's worth checking if you're not already super familiar with the maps where all of the bonuses are. We can also get conservation points from donations and from final scoring cards. Let's go ahead and take a little look at the sponsors that pertain to this. These are the 4 sponsors that give you a potential boost of conservation points during the game, and it can be really nice if you are going after a specific bonus and you want to just grab it quickly before somebody else does. These cards can be nice for that purpose. And also, something that I don't tend to do, but it's actually really good for that as well, is donations. So bear those in mind. It can be a bit awkward to try and claim a bonus with like a map bonus, but it can be done. So these are generally good. I particularly like this one, and these are strong as well. They're all good really. And then here we go, all of the endgame conservation bonus cards. This one can potentially give you 2 conservation points, so can this. This one's a lot harder. Generally speaking though, they're very easy to accomplish. This is super easy, 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 a little bit more difficult. That one's a little bit challenging. Easy. This is super great. You know, they're all really great. So if you can grab a few of these, they can 100% make the difference between a win and a loss. I've seen a lot of games that were very even, and then until we get to the point where we're actually starting to tot up that, and then it's just a landslide victory, you know? Just very quickly now, the various conservation projects. Of note are species diversity and habitat diversity. Now, what I always remember about these is that here, if you support them at level 5, you're going to get 5 conservation points, but at level 4, it's only 3. So people always fight super hard for these ones because they're very easy to get, but there's also a massive amount of discrepancy between level 1 and level 2 of these. So you definitely want to be getting the best thing there if possible. On these conservation projects, you'll see that there are no bear projects anywhere in the game, and there are no petting zoo projects. So don't be sat around waiting for a bear project to come out, because it's never going to. We already talked a little bit about releasing animals. So these breeding programs are excellent, especially for getting reputation. And of the remaining ones, small animals I think is noteworthy, research is noteworthy, normally quite easy to do. People tend to fight over these. They're only worth maximum 4 conservation points, but still really good. Alright, so what's points to take away then from this video? I would say that you definitely want to get some appeal early so that you can make the most of getting as much income as you can. You would like to be getting at least a couple of conservation points. Ordinarily, people support a project straight away to try and get one of these map bonuses and an upgrade or a worker, usually an upgrade. What people typically tend to do is get a conservation worker here and a card upgrade here. But yeah, you definitely want to be fighting for some of these bonuses a little bit further along the line. Once you get to 8 conservation points, it gets less important to like focus conservation points quite so hard. It doesn't matter as much. Getting those bonuses, once you have them, it like you can ease off a bit on that if you want to. I think the important thing is to weigh up everything, bearing in mind like where this track changes and how much things are worth. So if you've got animals, which you can play 2 animals on a turn, and that's going to be worth 15 points to you, that's probably going to be as good, if not better, than any conservation projects that you could support. So really just you know, weigh everything up and go from there. What I will say is that when I first started playing this game, I really got very tied up into trying to get conservation points. And while it can be very good, don't sleep on animals. Animals are very, very strong, and there's a reason why people upgrade animals a lot of the time, because you know they want to get those strong animals out, the powerful animals. And even if you're not playing the most powerful animals, getting those animals down, getting a huge appeal score can win you a lot of games. Alright, that's about everything I have to say for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and leave any comments. I would much appreciate that. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.